Hey everyone, MeltingMan234 here, doing a review of Sonic Forces. Yeah, wasn't sure how I would talk about this game on YouTube, whether it'd be just doing this or doing an episode of Give Me Chaos Theories about it. But I decided to make it its own thing, as a way to bookend my personal retrospective on the Sonic games. Might as well, seeing as how this is the last official Sonic game I'm ever playing. So, here we go. The story is all about Dr. Robotnik using the Phantom Ruby, a stone that can create illusions that look and feel real. And with that, he uses it to create an army of some of Sonic's past rivals, and lead them by a new villain on the block called Infinite. So they all gang up on Sonic, toss him around like a hacky sack, and defeat him, while Tails doesn't do a damn thing about it. After that, he's presumed dead, and Tails has quote-unquote lost it, while Robotnik succeeds in taking over almost the entire globe. Meanwhile, a group of Sonic's friends band together to lead the resistance to stop Robotnik, as they introduce Oswald the Lucky Rabbit to join their ranks. Along the way, they rescue Sonic from his prison, and then we have Classic Sonic, who has no reason to being in the story. Yeah, bloody story, but we'll get to that later. The game itself is divided into 4 segments: Legacy Sonic stages, Classic Sonic stages, Avatar stages, and the Tag Team stages. Now, since Classic Sonic was being thrown in, I was hoping Legacy Sonic stages would be an improvement and a lot more balanced than Colors, how blocky the level design was in that game. So I was hoping, a more return to 3D stuff. Keep Classic Sonic only 2D and keep Legacy Sonic only 3D. But nope, it's back to the Sonic Colors formula that I'm already getting sick and tired of seeing. Starts off as 3D, but then immediately switches to 2D a good chunk of the time. Another one of Sega's false advertisers and blah de blah de blah. I'm sure a lot of you were like, well, if you hated that in Forces and Colors, then what's Unleashed's excuse? Well, here's the difference. Whenever there was a 2D segment in Unleashed, it didn't overstay its welcome, and the way they were designed are sort of like the Rush games. You can still keep the flow speed going without too many things to get in your way. But from Sonic Colors and onwards, the games go into the 2D segments way too often, and they're very, very heavy on the platforming, which really slows down the game's pace and the lack of the balance between speed and platforming. Not to mention, we already have Classic Sonic doing all of the 2D stuff, so seriously, we already have Classic Sonic doing all the 2D stuff. Why do we need Legacy Sonic doing that as well? Is it really too much to ask for a Legacy Sonic game to be a real 3D Sonic game again? Yeah. Well, at least there's the fan-made games like Sonic Utopia and Sonic World. Those games are the definition of a real 3D Sonic game. But yeah, it's the return of boosting Sonic, which I'm alright with. Heck, I rarely use the boost formula at all in Sonic games, simply because it's optional. Seriously, you can play through these games without the boost 90% of the time, where there are only a few rare moments where it's mandatory. And as mentioned before, Classic Sonic has no purpose in the game, but he's there, and he sucks. Now, it's pretty obvious that Sonic Team can never emulate the physics of the Genesis games. I didn't have that much of a problem with this in Sonic 4 and Generations. I'm kind of the same thing with Forces, but here it's a lot more noticeable to me. I know this version of Sonic is fat, but literally his physics are pretty heavy, and the same goes with Legacy Sonic. And his levels are very bland, not much exciting stuff happens. Even the power-ups like Speed Shoes and Drowning are done and over with before you know it. It really feels like his gameplay was nothing more than an afterthought. Now for the Avatar stages, yeah, the custom hero that everyone and their grandmas have already made fun of. I already talked about this on DeviantArt where I brought up about how other games have had custom avatars and nobody complains about that. I just made mine a black rabbit, and I was like, hey, now you can play as Oswald the Lucky Rabbit in a Sonic game! Except there are no blue shorts for him. And of course I threw in those robotic cosmetics to think of him as a victim of the roboticization process gone wrong. But enough about that. How's the gameplay? Well, it's okay. It's kind of like Sonic minus the boosting, and we have Wispons, which are just fancy guns that have powers of the Wisps. I'm sure a lot of people are already getting tired of the Wisps coming back constantly in one form or another. But I think at this point, I think it's safe to say that they've become a permanent staple on the Sonic games, and they're not going away, whether you like it or not. Then, of course, there's the tag team stages, which, sadly, are the only times that actually feel like a real 3D Sonic game. Lots of people compare it to Heroes gameplay, but to me, I compare it more to the tag team mechanic in Sonic Advance 3. But other than that, tag team's alright. But as for the gameplay as a whole, it's very average and clunky at times. A lot of times when I'm playing Legacy Sonic, it just feels very stiff and I could barely move him instead of just running in a straight line. Now I can see why people complain about how this game is very automatic and very linear. There's also QuickTime events, which isn't anything new for a Sonic game, but they feel very underwhelming. Especially the double boost bits. Man, and I thought the overpowered charging homing attack in Sonic Lost World was unnecessary. And yes, I've actually managed to get around to playing Sonic Lost World, so even despite me giving an actual playthrough of the game itself, I still don't like it. And then there was also times where I feel like the characters can pick up speed instantly, making it hard to stop or overshooting my jumps. And it's not because of the different abilities from the whip spins. It feels like Legacy and Classic Sonic have this issue too. As for the levels themselves, they're also pretty bland. There's the obvious green hill and chemical plant guff, and the rest of the levels are just this weird hodgepodge of combining two levels into one. And the enemies for this game are really weak and really lazy, with only a small handful of variety to them. Most of the time they come in huge bunches and they can be dealt with pretty easily. In fact, it felt like a lot of times I was playing Hyrule Warriors instead of Sonic Forces. And finally, there's the DLC for this game. Yeah, of course, couldn't be a modern game without DLC. And this would probably have to be the most weakest DLC I've ever seen. First, there's Episode Shadow, a mode where you play as Shadow the Hedgehog before the events of the game, in 3 levels, and you get a very weak backstory to Infinite. Yeah, the grand return of seeing Shadow the Hedgehog as a playable character again, and it's very underwhelming. Then there's the Supersonic DLC, which should have been a secret unlockable in-game, rather than this DLC afterthought. Now I can go super fast! Great, as if the levels themselves weren't short enough already. And then there's the Sonic t-shirt, a DLC that just makes me want to kill myself. I really don't like that whole Sonic meme. It's old news and was never funny to begin with. And this is one of the many reasons why I can't take Aaron Webber seriously. Now for the last bit of this topic that I feel like rambling on about in this game, and that is the story. And boy do I have a lot to say about it. First off, their attempts in trying to be all dark and edgy with the story is pathetic. Yeah, the story was written by some guy in Japan, but Pontek and Graf are still involved with this project, and we all know how I have a flaming hatred against their style of writing for Sonic games. Here, some of the dialogue are just them trying to sound all dark and edgy when there's really no context to support it. There's no meat to it, it's just leftover scraps. Oh no, Sonic's dead and Tails has lost it, and yet the next time we see him, he's perfectly fine. If he had completely lost it, we would have seen his fur being all messed up, his eyes be twitching, and him rambling on about random stuff while carrying some blunt object with a crudely drawn face of Sonic on it, claiming that he's alive and he's here. See, that is the definition of Tails losing it. And there's also the whole, oh, Sonic's been tortured for months, and again, he looks perfectly fine. So what, were they just giving him the tickle torture and nothing else? As for the character themselves, they're alright for the most part. Sonic's very meh, Tails has been downgraded so badly that it's sad. Knuckles, while just spouting out dry military talk, is a huge improvement over the worthless sack of potatoes he's been for the past several years. Also, this is the only time you're going to be seeing Silver at his best. And then there's Infinite, a new guy with his new powers of making things real even though they're not real, with the Phantom Ruby. And his backstory on why he's doing all of this is laughable. In episode Shadow, it's shown that he was a mercenary working for Robotnik, and he gets his ass kicked by Shadow, and that immediately sets him off to be evil and powerful. You'd think that Shadow would be his main target for revenge, but nope, he just goes off to mess with someone else's life. Not to mention, this guy is way too forgiving, where he has his victims right where he wants them, and then he just lets them go without finishing it off. Yeah, dark and edgy my ass. So that's my take on Infinite. Cool design, but his backstories and motives are really pathetic. Not even the official webcomics can save him. And then there's Classic Sonic's inclusion, where I already stated in a video about how this game is not really a game meant for Legacy Sonic fans because Classic Sonic is shoehorned into the game. In fact, the cutscene alone where he's introduced has way too many problems to count. One, as mentioned before, the whole Tails has lost it line, has no context, as he looks and acts perfectly fine. Yeesh, at least the Japanese version was more believable. 2, Chaos shows up and Tails cowers in fear. Yeah, this was the same guy who defeated Chaos 4. How is Chaos 0 any more threatening? 3. Classic Sonic shows up. 4. After he bonks Chaos on the head, that's it. That's pretty much the last time you see him throughout the game. There's no boss fight with him or anywhere. I've grown used to Sega's bad habits of false advertising, but even I feel offended by this. 5.
You're that Sonic from another dimension, aren't you?
How did Tails automatically know this? Did he not question if this was a Sonic from the past or just an illusion before getting the answers later? I thought Tails was supposed to be a smart mechanic, not a freaking psyche. 6. While we're on that note, how does this version of Classic Sonic look any different from the one that we've seen in Generations? 7. Tails says that Classic Sonic is here to help save the world, even though he doesn't do anything important to move the plot forward. Seriously, you could cut him out of the entire game and you wouldn't miss anything. Again, why do we need him in this game? So all I'm getting out of this is that the only reason why Classic Sonic is in the game is not only for a cheap marketing tie-in with Sonic Mania, which completely ruins the point about these games originally advertised for specific Sonic fans, but he's there just for the sake of a retcon. That's right, folks. From now on in the Sonic games, these two characters are no longer the same person who team up via time travel. No. They're two completely different characters who exist in completely different universes. And that's bullshit. I mean, first there's the whole plot hole about Robotnik blowing up the moon in Sonic Adventure 2, and then it's magically fixed in the Shadow game. But now you have this scene, which is just a big slap in the face and just makes this screwed up timeline even more screwed up. And if you want to try and piece it together now, well, be my guest, because I gave up on that years ago. There's also this whole deal about Tails and Classic Sonic starting some kind of bond, which kind of feels creepy in a way, but at the same time, it goes absolutely nowhere. I mean, after he finds out that his version of Sonic is alive, it's just one scene and that's it. The rest of the time, he's just gushing over Classic Sonic. I once talked about how instead of Sega trying to find a decent balance to please both the classic and legacy fans and how they're just merely picking sides and sticking with it, I think this game clearly shows whose side they're on. So, despite all that rambling with the story, here's my conclusion on this game. Sonic Forces. It's not good, it's not bad, it's just very, very, very average. There is some fun to the Avatar stages and some bits and pieces here and there, but everything else is just dull and boring and practically lifeless, as if Sega pretty much put little to no effort into this game. Considering the fact and how this game was advertised as the return of a more serious and action-packed Sonic, it just falls flat on its face. I've never seen a Sonic game with so much wasted potential and missed opportunities, and this game is filled to the brim with that stuff. Yeesh, and I thought Generations had it bad. And this over-reliance on classic Sonic being used as a crutch to Legacy Sonic recently is already getting annoying for me. We already got that in Generations. Once was enough. Leave their gameplay styles separate and let them be their own thing. Leave classic Sonic all 2D and leave Legacy Sonic 3D. And I mean real 3D. Or at the very least, keep the 2D stuff down to a minimum for Legacy Sonic and not have them overtake the entire game. And that's it. Despite its average gameplay and everything, this game just leaves me depressed. I pretty much knew this game would probably be my breaking point, and it is, so that's it. No more. That's the last time them bastards are getting a single dime out of me. Besides, if the future of Sonic games are going to be nothing more than them relying on dank memes and more nostalgia pandering because they believe that's the only reason that's keeping Sonic alive, then there really is no point in continuing on anymore. I can already tell a lot of you are pissed off about me and just saying, oh, just give them another chance, they'll do better, but I'm sorry. I just can't take it anymore. I've given them plenty of chances before in the past, and they kept screwing them up with their false advertising. I mean, even now, if they decide to try and actually make a real 3D Sonic game, like something out of Sonic Adventure or even Sonic Unleashed, I'm not playing it. It's already too late for me.